It's not clear exactly how much literature study is to be replaced by informational text, but the creators of the English standards suggest at least 50% of the reading in English classes should be nonfiction rather than literature. And there are several problems with this. First, most English teachers in the country have not been trained to teach this kind of material, nor would the good ones want to. So those who don't quit in frustration will have to be retrained. Second, what little teacher training there has been has instructed teachers to treat our most important historical documents, such as the Gettysburg Address, as if they were just sentences on a page, without context and without cultural importance. However, the most serious problem is the philosophy behind this approach. The philosophy that children shouldn't be overeducated, shouldn't spend time studying something that won't give them practical assistance in their future jobs. That the point of education is to train children to be cogs in a government-managed economic machine, not to educate them to be informed, thinking citizens in a democratic republic, to be better human beings. That is what studying great literature can do for students, but that's what Common Core seeks to minimize. The education establishment, as well as the many vendors set to make money on Common Core through our tax dollars, have been lobbying teachers and local school systems for months with assurances that Common Core is the magic bullet to solve our education problems. But because the standards have been implemented so far primarily in the lower grades, where they are less objectionable, the teachers who will be the most adversely affected don't really know what they're in for. The big teachers' unions, such as the National Education Association and the American Federation of Teachers, that are supporting Common Core are doing their members no favors.
I have to say that the data tracking system sounds rather Orwellian to me. What is the connection between the Common Core and this Big Brother system that shares student data with the federal government?
Another provision of the Race to the Top grant process, President Obama's education scheme, required states that wanted federal money to build huge student databases. The feds recommended that these databases ultimately contain over 400 data points on each student: test scores, disciplinary record, health history, family income range, religious affiliation, just to name a few. The U.S. Department of Education is now pressuring states to turn over that data in exchange for various federal grants. And the two Common Core testing consortia are contractually obligated to give the Department of Education student-level data resulting from the tests. And the Department of Education recently gutted federal education privacy law to allow sharing of this personally identifiable data with other government agencies and with private entities, so long as the sharing can be described as an audit or evaluation of an education program. The people pushing these Big Brother data systems realize these efforts require clever marketing to convince policymakers and the American public to make the cultural leap towards centralized collection of student data. They claim that they must collect all student data from preschool through the workforce to see how their education policies are working, and student and family privacy must be sacrificed in the process. The Department of Education is prohibited by statute from maintaining a national student database, so it's getting around that by making the states collect the data and then share it with the federal government. The Department of Education is open about wanting to share education data with the Department of Labor, so that the government can track children from preschool through career. It's a progressive school-to-work dream to know everything there is to know about a citizen so he can be better plugged into the managed economic machine.
Sacrificing privacy rights is a heavy cost in and of itself, but all this sounds expensive in dollars and cents. What's the price tag?
No one knows how much it will cost to implement Common Core. Most states signed on without performing a thorough cost analysis because the Obama administration didn't give them time. One aspect of increased costs will be professional development, teacher training, which even Common Core proponents admit will have to be intensive. Another is textbooks and instructional materials to align with Common Core, and companies such as Bill Gates' Microsoft and other giant education publishers are salivating at the millions to be made. A third is the cost of the new tests, which will be huge. States will have to invest millions in new technology, purchasing, maintaining, upgrading for the computerized test. In addition, many of the items on the test will have to be scored by hand rather than by computer. Presumably, those individuals hand scoring the test will want to be paid. One expert on assessment costs estimates that annual per-pupil costs of the new Common Core tests may be about $100 per student per year. This is an extraordinary amount compared to the testing costs reported by most states in 2007. In fact, over 10 times as much as reported by many states. A national study estimated that nationwide Common Core implementation costs could be about $16 billion. And that study excluded some costs that are hard to quantify. In any event, Common Core promises to be a huge unfunded mandate.
Some people may believe all this cost and loss of privacy and the loss of local control over education is necessary just to ensure we can compare student performance across states. What is your response?
If we want to compare students state to state, we can already do that. In the lower grades, we have the National Assessment of Educational Progress, known as the NAEP, which isn't a one-to-one comparison, but it gives a good sense of where we are. In high school, we have the SAT and the ACT. And if we're concerned about students who move from state to state, that is a very small percentage of the population. According to census data, less than 2% per year. It's not worth destroying state control over education to standardize and diminish an entire educational system for such a small subset of students.
What about the argument that countries with national common standards outperform countries that have decentralized standards?
There are countries with national standards that perform better on international tests. There are also countries without national standards that perform better on international tests, such as Canada and Australia. There are also countries with national standards that perform much worse on international tests, so there's no correlation. Also, high-performing countries with national standards tend to be much smaller than the United States, such as Finland, which is about the size of Colorado. The thought that we can successfully nationalize and standardize education with a Bill Gates-type Common Core operating system in a country of 300 million wildly diverse people is, frankly, ludicrous. The answer is quite the opposite, to decentralize education so that parents and localities have the kind of control they used to have before the federal government took over.
Do proponents of charter schools and vouchers have anything to worry about?
Common Core has the potential to obliterate any benefits of school choice. If Common Core is imposed on all public schools, whether traditional or charter, and maybe on private schools in states with voucher programs, there will be no point in having a choice. As Dr. Jay Green, a prominent local control advocate, puts it, what good is it to have 100 restaurants to choose from if they all have to be Italian?
Well, surely homeschoolers and private schools do not have anything to worry about, right?
Proponents of Common Core want all education ultimately to be under Common Core. Their plans are truly sweeping. They want to control the entire education system, kindergarten through college, using Common Core. The primary author of the Common Core English Language Arts Standards, David Coleman, is the new president of the College Board and promises to align the SAT with Common Core and its unique method of instruction. If that happens, students from private schools or homeschools will be at a tremendous disadvantage unless their schools or parents throw in the towel and accept Common Core and its teaching methods. And let's face it, colleges and universities require a strong performance on the SAT for students to be admitted.
So I am beginning to see that we are talking about far more than just common standards for math and English language arts.
Currently in development are national standards in science and history, social studies. Also, some influential health and sex education groups recently released national standards in those areas. Now, these standards are not technically part of Common Core at this point, but the Common Core framework will have been constructed for the imposition of new standards and tests, and the states will be acclimated to accepting standards dictated by their federal master. So there is every reason to believe that these future standards will be imposed the same way Common Core was, through the power of the federal purse.
Where is all this taking us as a nation?
I've indicated this is utopian, grandiose planning for a managed global economy. Common Core plays a key role towards standardizing a type of education that is specifically geared to developing human capital for the global labor market. In fact, Common Core proponents market this educational shift by claiming it will help our nation compete in the global economy. It's a progressive school-to-work dream to think that government finally will have all the tools in place to plan for future labor markets. Progressives, or socialists as they have been historically known, have long sought to create a managed economy. The free enterprise system with all the individual decisions of a free people is just too messy for them. They like the idea of government directing the economy and controlling the educational opportunities and job opportunities of the nation. Some states are quickly moving to embrace the career cluster portion of the overall plan, with the false hope that government can adequately plan and predict future economic trends, as well as analyze student data to ensure that graduates can be better plugged into the managed economic machine. But what really needs to be made clear in all of this, since it is very easy to get lost in the details, is what happens to the nation with this philosophical shift in education. Unfortunately, most people don't see the big picture. Yet, all the pieces of the puzzle fit neatly together to create a new vision for the nation. This new vision has nothing to do with the vision the Founding Fathers gave us. They gave us a vision and a constitutional framework promoting individual freedom, personal responsibility, limited government, free enterprise, and local control. This new vision, on the other hand, advances the model of a command economy and unlimited government. Through our schools, the next generation will be conditioned to accept that government has the right to direct them to serve the economic priorities of the nation, or any other priorities the government deems best. In other words, government will no longer be their servant, but will become their master, and the individual will exist to serve the purposes of society.
This sounds overwhelming and already well on its way to being totally entrenched into our schools. What can regular citizens do?
There is still time to stop Common Core. Some states never accepted the standards in the first place, states such as Texas and Alaska, and others have withdrawn, such as Virginia, or are seriously considering withdrawing. Activists in many states are learning about the threat of Common Core and are lobbying their representatives to pass legislation reversing the stealth commitment to Common Core. Here's what to do. Start by educating yourself on the Common Core. Listen to this video again. Visit two websites, truthinamericaneducation.org and stopcommoncore.com, and review the extensive list of online resources and downloadable documents. While at the Stop Common Core website, be sure to sign the petition declaring your opposition to the Common Core. Next, educate others. Parents, educate fellow parents. Educate your fellow citizens. Educate your school board members. Share the websites with them. Contact your state legislators and urge them to support legislation to withdraw from the Common Core and the intrusive data tracking system. Contact the governor, the state school superintendent, and the State Board of Education and urge them to support legislation to withdraw from Common Core. Finally, visit the Citizens Take Action page at stopcommoncore.com for additional ways to get involved in stopping Common Core. Chief Justice John Roberts recently warned the states against accepting federal mandates that they don't want in order to get federal money. He said, "The states are separate and independent sovereigns. Sometimes they have to act like it." This ought to serve as fair warning to all those states that have jumped at the chance to get Race to the Top grant funds or to obtain a No Child Left Behind waiver from the federal government. It is the people of the states who pay for public education, and these are our children in public schools. The elected officials of our states have no right to hand over the governance of our educational system to either the federal government or to unaccountable boards of nonprofit organizations. It's time to tell all these people to stop experimenting on our children and stop robbing us of our constitutional rights to control education in our states. Together, we can reclaim local control of education. Let's revive that great rallying cry of the civil rights movement. If not us, who? If not now, when? Let's pass liberty on to the next generation.